The bandwidth for this episode of the AR-15 podcast is sponsored by the Firearms Radio Network. FirearmsRadio.tv.
Welcome to episode number 74 of the AR-15 podcast. I'm your host, Reed Snyder, and with me today is J.W. Rand. This is the podcast about your favorite black rifle. This show is for you, whether you're building your first AR, or you've been building ARs for years. There's something we can all do to take our black rifle to the next level. JW, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing all right.
Well,
got to do a little bit of shooting this week. This is my week off, so.
Your week off, huh?
Mm-hmm. I've been kind of straying from the AR platform and doing a lot of long-range stuff lately. So, yeah, been working on some hand loads and pretty satisfied with those.
Well, tell me about your long-range offerings there. Have you been going to an extended range, or you just trying your...
Locally, 250 to 300 is about all that you can stretch things out to. You kind of got to travel a little bit if you want to go further than that. And so, like I said a couple weeks ago, we had a course that was put on by a company called Blackheart Consulting, and that was right in the middle of PA, and it was like an 1,100-yard range, and so that was pretty awesome to be able to shoot steel out that far.
Now, you know, I'm going to be coming up to Pennsylvania this summer, I think.
Yeah, we can find some ranges for you.
It's going to be kind of around the 19th, 20th. I have to figure out a way to make my wife happy by, you know, doing something very non-traditional for her. I don't know, maybe take her out to a nice restaurant, or we'll have to see. But, yeah, we'll definitely have to see if we can do that.
Yeah, I actually, last night, had to use my night vision a little bit.
Your night vision? Tell me how that worked.
Yeah, so we're getting ready for bed and heard a couple loud bangs down the road a ways, and it sounded to me a lot like gunfire. So just nodded up and took a peek, cut off all the lights in the house, took a peek out the window in the front and the back, and coast looked clear. So just kind of battened down the hatches and went to bed.
Huh. Well, I got to tell you, I kind of envy your setup there. I'm trying to figure out how to get that into the household budget. Well, tonight we are not going to spotlight a Brownells pick of the week, but we are going to let you know that Brownells has graciously agreed to help us with our next giveaway. They're going to be providing a rifle in its constituent parts so that we can assemble it and go through each and every phase of that assembly with you, the readers, well, listeners. So in that vein, we just want to let you know that Brownells helps make this show possible. So don't forget that Brownells is there for you anytime you make a mistake, like when Jake shoots a takedown pin detent across his avocado green linoleum flooring and it skids under the cabinets. And tonight, I think you will see the wisdom of our dire warning here as we get into the listener feedback. So
yeah, I don't think Jake's the only one that's had that problem before.
That may not. That may be the case. So we want you to shop for AR-15 parts at Brownells. You can go to ar15podcast.com/parts. As far as announcements for the week, we are still looking for volunteers to help with editing, and that would be in the video and audio side of things. So if you have an interest, let us know by sending us an email with your contact information, and we'll get that sent over to Jake so that he can take a look at your credentials and give a shout out to you to see if you might be able to help. So, with that out of the way, in very fine form, I should say, let's move on to our main topic.
What's the main topic this week, Reed?
Well, you know, I've been seeing some industry news come out about a few ARs that are not quite ARs. So Troy Industries has come up with a pump action AR, and Ares has released its SCR, which I believe is essentially a lower receiver mated to what you traditionally see as a shotgun field stock.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought in that vein we could take a look at some ARs that aren't quite ARs and see what we come up with.
Great. Now,
So,
the manufacturers, they kind of come up with these for different reasons. One of them's kind of for the function reason, that it brings something unique to the table. And I guess the other one that we've been seeing more and more often is for regulatory reasons.
that's right. And I think you're speaking more specifically of the Ares SCR.
So there's some certain features that most of our ARs possess that seem to instill instill fear into the hearts and minds of politicians. What kind of attributes are those?
Well, I think one of those would be the pistol grip, which is an awe-inspiring fear.
Fear-mongering device.
Exactly. Yes, the pistol grip.
Increasing lethality and deadliness.
Right. And I think right on top of that is the telescoping stock.
Now,
so
is that the shoulder thing that goes up and down?
yeah, that's the shoulder thing that goes up and down.
Okay, got it.
And with the telescoping stock, I mean, we can have an AR that goes from a little person all the way to a big giant person.
And because it's
telescoping,
that means
exactly.
that you can shoot further. Is that?
I think that might be one of the big positives of a telescoping stock.
Okay, got it.
All right. So Ares has probably designed this stock so that they can quell the fears of those very open-minded liberal people that we all know and love, and make these available to people in some of the states that have a little more restrictive laws in place. But all kidding aside, Ares and its Ares Defense Dynamics. Ares has put together a combination of a bolt and a field stock with a custom milled lower receiver that assembles what, to my eye, it looks like any standard automatic rifle I've seen. It's a little unconventional in that it takes down like an AR, but a Browning automatic rifle, a Remington automatic rifle, they're all built on the same premise. And I think the thing to me that is the most interesting is they borrowed a piece of engineering from the automatic shotgun world. And JW, you and I were both talking about that. Tell me about your...
Yeah, so normally on an AR-15, the buffer tube kind of goes from the upper receiver completely rearward in a straight line, but that kind of gets in the way of where your thumb would be on a sporter stock. And so kind of like in the Benelli M4 or some of the Mossberg semi-autos, like I've got one of those, there's a recoiling rod that is at an angle to the rear of the receiver. And so they've actually designed a similar system into their SCR. And that's going to require a bolt change as well, but it makes it so that you can slap a regular upper onto this rifle, and with the bolt change out, it'll recoil down into your sporterized stock.
I think that if you were going to look at this from the perspective of performance change, I can't imagine that there would be much in the way of perceived differences from the way this would handle and an AR would handle.
Right. You're dealing with the 5.56, so it's not like you're wrestling a big bit of recoil impulse.
And because of the angle of that stock, I think that you could easily accommodate a much larger length of recoil absorption in there, and with the angle of the rod that comes off of your bolt, I think you might actually be able to add a little bit of mass and length, which would probably help in absorbing some of that. Of course, I'm not really sure about the full engineering dynamics, but that's all speculation.
Yeah, my biggest concern until I got one in my hands would be the height that your eye would end up looking down the upper, because on a Monte Carlo stock, you kind of rest a little bit lower than you do on an AR stock. So I guess I'd be worried about getting my head up high enough on it to be able to see through my optic. So maybe there's some sort of cheek riser or something like that that would be a helpful piece in that sort of situation.
Well, and certainly with the Monte Carlo style stock, I mean, cheek risers, dime a dozen. You can find those anywhere.
Right.
So it's a ubiquitous solution for that particular problem. But I think you're right. Just kind of eyeballing the level of that stock with the flat top, you're really are looking at a much different plane from what you would with the standard AR stock.
Right.
Well, so I think that's pretty much all there is that I can detect in the SCR and how it differs from the AR. So why don't we move on to our next discussion point here, which is the Troy PAR. And that's Troy Industries, which I think we're all familiar with their sites.
Now this looks really cool to me. And if nothing else, for the look on the face of the Pennsylvania Game Commissioner, who would come up to me wagging his finger for going hunting with a semi-auto when I just rack the pump action on it and show him that he's mistaken.
I've never had that experience here in Texas, so I can't really empathize. I guess it kind of reminds me of that old, I guess the old wives' tale that the surest way of scaring the intruder is to, rack the 12 gauge at the door. I'm wondering if racking your 5.56 at the door would have the same impact.
Yeah, I think I'd have to get a T&E copy to do some testing here in
Absolutely.
Pennsylvania. But yeah, this piece from Troy looks really slick. Where did you hear about it from? Just kind of bounced around the internet?
At some point, in order to avoid being, caught unawares by our avid listeners and industry followers, I had to get on with a bunch of industry insider sites to get ahead of the news releases. And this was part of a news release detailing Troy Industries, Troy Defense's rifle here. And so, I looked at it and I was really kind of intrigued with their approach to, I think, kind of making this legal in a lot of places where a semi-automatic rifle isn't legal.
Right.
I mean, I think that you could probably walk straight into any state that has just passed an AR ban, and I don't think that this would run afoul of it because it's not semi-automatic.
Right. Yeah, I think once you open up the category of semi-auto, that's when the restrictions start. But if you kind of stay in the pump action category, things like threaded barrels and pistol grips, I don't think really count against you.
Right. And I mean, yeah, it's not an AR. When people buy the AR because they want the semi-auto, but still, I think it's an interesting rifle. I mean, I guess it is potentially in the category of novelty. I don't want to say that lightly because obviously, Troy Defense has put some engineering resources behind it, but certainly, and I guess it's because I live in Texas, I look at this and I don't see it as a solution to any of my problems.
Right.
I see it as
I guess some of the unique features of it does have a folding stock, because you're running a pump. You don't need that recoil, the buffer tube or the spring or any of that. So there's a folding stock on it, just like on a SCAR or something. And I'm not sure how the weight really compares. It's probably pretty comparable to your normal AR.
Right. Well, it's 6 pounds, it says,
Okay.
which is about a pound lighter than most any AR we've seen.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like a great solution to that sort of an issue. It lets you use all your AR accessories and gives you the platform to put a real nice optic on the top or flashlights, things like that, but in a pump action sort of a platform.
Right.
So it's not something that you can just pop the upper off and put a different upper on, obviously, because the pump's built right into the upper.
Right.
But on its own, I mean, Troy Defense makes some pretty sweet rifles. I've seen some of their PDWs featured in Recoil magazine, and they come up with some pretty neat solutions as far as shortened buffer tubes and collapsible stocks on ARs that really weren't meant for collapsible stocks, and so they definitely have some cool things in the works.
Well, and with that, let's move on to the next item, which is the Rhino Arms 12-gauge upper. Now, of course, this isn't necessarily an AR component. This is an upper receiver that goes on Rhino Arms' 308 lower, but it's an upper receiver in a 12-gauge shotgun shell.
Right, so they've got basically an AR-10 variant that runs 308 and the bigger magazines, all that, but it's otherwise pretty standard AR parts, and you can pull that off, and because it's got that larger magwell, they've built magazines and an upper that'll cycle 12-gauge.
So, to me, that's an intriguing possibility. I think every time I've ever seen a pseudo or quasi 12-gauge shotgun variant of an AR, it's kind of garbage. They look cheap. They kind of don't look safe. Not like safe they'll kill you safe, but safe they'll blow up in your hands and scar you for life safe. I think it's an interesting evolution, and certainly it's one that I think I would have expected to have crept up into the market a lot sooner than it has.
Yeah, I think the size of 12-gauge is kind of a limiting factor because everybody wants to be able to use the magwell on the AR lower, and stepping up to the AR-10 platform gives you the room to do that.
Yeah, but I wonder if the problem has always been that the AR-10 really takes a back seat as far as the market, except in the last couple of years where it's kind of really gained a following and some prominence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Rhino says that their lower is patterned after the DPMS 308s, and that was the same one that I used to have from Bushmaster. It was basically a DPMS, and so that's going to work with your Magpul 308 mags. It'll work with the SR25 mags, the ones that are going through a SAS.
Right.
So, yeah, it looks like they really took that into consideration. They're selling it on its own. It looks like just the 308 for over $2,500. And if you want the combo, it'll give you the 12-gauge and the 308 upper. It'll give you a lower, 2 magazines, and a drag bag. The MSRP is $5,000.
Well, that's a very pricey shotgun. I hope it takes up on game well.
Yep. You get a 308 for that price, though, too.
Well, I guess there is that.
And a drag bag.
Well, I don't know. I'm not really too enthused about the drag bag. Well, those are kind of some of the integrated AR variants that we've seen. But there are a lot of innovations in this kind of not quite an AR realm that are just basically unique uppers that go on top of an AR lower, kind of utilizing the lower as the trigger pack and
right. The whole unique thing about the AR system is that the lower is the registered part,
Right.
and there's not that much inside of it, so the modularity comes from the uppers where you can do caliber changes and length changes and things like that. And so there's actually some people that have scaled um, the upper to actually hold a 50 BMG, and so they've made bolt action 50 cals that you can just clip right into your AR lower. There's a couple here we've tossed in the show notes, but it's obviously not going to be feeding from a magazine. I think there are a couple guys that have side magazines that kind of hang off at 90 degrees, but most of these are just a single feeder bolt action,
Right.
and yeah, it lets you put whatever trigger you want in your lower, and these are probably like 20, 24-inch barrels. These are pretty serious uppers.
Well, and, when you talk about the side feeding magazines, I mean that's pretty much still completely an upper receiver oriented addition. You're milling that surface on the upper receiver.
Right, you don't have to touch your lower at all.
Right. So I mean, I think that this is an interesting approach to getting into a 50 BMG without spending 15 grand on a Barrett.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the offering here, I just spec'd one out, 24-inch, and it's $1,600. And so you throw that on top of maybe a $250 complete lower, and that's a pretty low barrier to entry to start playing with the 50 BMG. Now, obviously, 50 isn't like a high precision round. Obviously, it's a long range round, but it's more of an area fire sort of a round. They also sell them in 416 Barrett and 338 Lapua if you're interested in really dialing in the precision. So it's an interesting option. I've never really looked at those, but if I were to really want to sling some 50 cal downrange, it's kind of a low price way to do it.
I think my question would be, how are they going to absorb the recoil?
With your shoulder, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be kind of a hard way to go about that.
Also with a ginormous brake. But yeah, that's one of the things that makes the M82 so easy to shoot, is because it's a semi-auto, and it's helping you out with the recoil.
Right. Well, doesn't that also have some kind of a doesn't the barrel rock back with it?
Well, I know the Mod Deuce definitely does. That barrel's hopping back and forth, helping you with the recoil every time. But yeah, I mean, when you start jumping up to shooting 50 cal, you got to be careful that you're not going to get something that somebody's just thrown together in their garage and, hey, I can weld, I can make one of those, because this is where you're dealing with a lot of pressure very close to your face. And so, I mean, there's some good builders out there, and there's some kind of fly-by-night, not so good builders out there. So I just be careful and do your reading online, like Anthony was telling you about last week.
Well, we saw some video of a 50 basically detonating on a bench and throwing a bolt into some guy's neck, didn't we?
Yeah, the lugs, from what I remember, the lugs completely sheared off of the bolt, and the bolt ejected itself rearward into the guy's neck.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, really, when you're talking about something, and
it might be a little bit of a lower barrier to entry, but don't
skip on safety.
Yeah.
Well, so the next one is kind of a fun approach to using your lower receivers that have no mated uppers that are sitting in your safe. And,
if you're looking for something that's a little quieter and don't want a suppressor, and you want something that's as quiet as a suppressed 22, you could take a look at these. What are they called? It's the Cross-Tack Ordnance from PSE Archery. And so this is actually a crossbow upper.
Now, it's supposed to have 155 foot-pounds of kinetic energy.
And I have no idea what that equates to because I have never fired a crossbow, so I'm clueless.
Well, we're just reciting statistics for all of you bow hunters out there who probably know a great deal more.
It says it sends a 425 grain arrow at about 400 foot per second, and that's about all that means anything to me.
You know, I think it's an interesting toy. You know, I'm not sure that this is what a real crossbow shooter would turn to if they were going to take a crossbow into the field, but I certainly think that this is probably a whole lot less than what your average bow hunter would take into the field. I'm sure there's a whole lot more there.
Twang and Bang, if you've ever watched him on YouTube, did a review of this I saw a while back, and I know he was kind of doing a comparison of semi-auto 22 suppressed versus bolt action suppressed, and then he pulled out one of these tactical assault crossbows and just kind of blew it out of the water as far as sending something downrange with the least sound signature possible, and he was pretty impressed. So yeah, for you bow hunters out there that might want to take advantage of your extra AR lower sitting around, they sell it both with and without a lower. So yeah, take a look. And it's got a quad rail and everything. Strap a real nice optic on the top.
Yeah, or maybe just a very cheap optic. You can save a real nice optic for your AR.
Yeah, I'm thinking resistance to recoil isn't as big of a concern.
Yeah, and I don't think that you're going to get as much distance out of this as you would an AR. So
yeah,
you're probably good with the one power.
The 40 power bench rest scope.
Yeah, I'm thinking anything that you can find at an academy would work.
And now, when I was looking up to see if there are any other reviews of this online, I found that there was a listing on Amazon, and you can't buy it right now, but at one point you could buy this upper at Amazon. I don't know if you can find anything like that nowadays, but that just warms my heart that you can buy a AR upper on Amazon.
Well, you know, I think this just goes to show that Amazon is where you need to go for everything. So you found something on our next item that I think is just it's very interesting.
It's kind of wacky.
It is.
I think it attests to the ingenuity that some people come up with in their garage. There's a guy that goes by Long Ziz that has a video he put up of a bullpup that he designed that actually involves a regular old AR lower that's dropped down into this polymer contraption, and it converts the AR into a bullpup platform. It uses all the same trigger parts, everything like that. It just replaces the buffer tube and locks down into a lower assembly, and a proprietary upper locks onto it. And he's actually got some features in it where you can choose what side the empties eject on, whether you're a lefty or a righty. And he's moved the trigger forward, and it has some sort of rod that actuates the trigger back in the AR lower. And yeah, I mean, it's really a testament to what guys can come up with CAD software and 3D printing and whatever he can get his hands on.
You know, that's definitely an interesting approach to utilizing the, I guess, the AR components in a new design philosophy. But you know, it kind of, I'm a little anxious about whether or not I would actually shoot one. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be, you know, saying ill of his life's work, but you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, if somebody said that the Tavor rifle was just an AR and a bullpup configuration, you know, I'd be a little disappointed with that.
Yeah, and it looks like, I mean, you've seen bullpup conversions, whether it's the Sega 12 being switched out, so the mag's kind of behind the pistol grip there, or whether it's an AK that's all chopped up. The unique thing here is that he didn't cut the lower at all. He just dropped it into this package. And so it's the sort of thing where, like the guys with their Mini 14s that have all sorts of different kits that they drop them into,
Right, right.
it's the same idea, but with an AR lower. So
Well, wouldn't this kind of be similar to what they did with that Ruger 1022?
yeah, same idea.
Oh, yeah. So, I
Like
mean,
the all the red jacket stuff that they come up with, they've got some polymer bullpup
right.
1022 drop-in kits.
Yeah, so I'm curious, but I don't know. I'm still a little wary. But there is one other item that I wanted to point out. This isn't really an AR, but it's something that I saw a little while back. It is a modernized BAR. Now,
everybody loves the bar.
We're talking World War II, John Wayne fame, storming the beaches of Iwo Jima, just your classic Browning automatic rifle, which is essentially, it's the squad automatic weapon of World War II.
And we're not talking 223, we're not talking 308, we're talking 30-06.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this is a weapon that, when it's in its true military form, it goes from safe to rock and roll in, 0.25 seconds. It's really just the epitome of bad.
I think this is pretty high up on the list of things that gives Reed a freedom chub.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Ohio Ordnance Works has been preparing their new HCAR for release. So they debuted it in 2013, and so the reports are that the rifle will be heading into production soon. If you've seen any of the rifles from Ohio Ordnance at work, I mean, this is a sight to see, and I definitely think that it's worth going to the link, following through, and taking a look at the video that they have here. But to me, I think that this is like the AR-15 writ large. I mean, this is what it was truly meant to be.
I wonder how heavy that magazine is fully loaded.
I think that magazine's probably 10 pounds.
30 rounds of 30-06. Yep.
I mean,
that's mean.
It is. It is. And then, just they kitted it out with the collapsible stock. It looks like
they've got like a dimpled barrel on it. It's all FDE.
It's got all the rails, Picatinny on the top and the sides. It's got the. I'm not really sure. I mean, it looks like it's a pretty standard AR grip, but I don't know. It looks a little more vertical. Is that a AK grip, or is it the saw grip that you see on some of these?
Yeah, it looks kind of like an AK grip. I'd call that pretty close to that.
So I mean, I think that really, to me, is just this is just awesome.
Yeah, and Ohio Ordnance makes some pretty cool stuff. They do like modern remakes, civilian capable semi-auto versions of like the 1919 and the Bar and the M240, and they're pretty slick.
I think that I would be willing to spend some money for a Title II BAR. I gotta wonder though, are they as expensive as an AR, an M16 lower? You think they're in that 10-20 grand range?
Oh, I have no idea.
Because I've seen the Thompsons that are of no particular historical significance,
right,
that are less than an AR lower, an M16 lower, fully automatic.
Right.
So,
I mean, the demand for M16s is so high
Yeah, yeah. And anything that'll make a AR go fully automatic, like the drop-on auto sears, those are, rarer than hen's teeth when they come up. They probably get bought up as fast as they hit the market. But
Yeah, I mean, on Gunbroker, I see a post sample, which you'd have to be a dealer to have for 12 grand. There's a fully transferable one for 25. There's a transferable one for 15.
now, why would they sell a post dealer one for 25 or 15 grand? Or you can go
I
out
don't
and
know. I
buy
mean,
post dealer stuff from Colt for less than that.
yeah, I'm not sure if there's some sort of historical significance. Yeah, the transferable ones are looking like 24, 25
Yeah.
starting bids.
Well, and I always wonder if they don't start out that high and come down lower.
Yeah, who knows what you could convince them to let it go for.
Well, it's kind of like leasing office real estate. The square footage that you're going to get is $25 a square foot. They're just going to give you, 2 out of your 3 years rent free, so that you can say it's $25 a square foot.
Ah, okay. So yeah, maybe we'll do a Title II Weapons of World War II show at some point.
Well, it might be interesting to kind of see the precursor to the U.S. Army's main battle rifle, which would be the M16. But that being said, I think we've kind of rummaged through the bin of all things not quite an AR, and I think we've covered all the real big bases here.
Yeah, I mean, there's always new designs coming out. That's what's so great about the AR platform, is its modularity and its popularity. And so there's so much demand out there, it incentivizes manufacturers to give some of these wacky things a try and see what sticks. And
That's true.
there's some really unique use cases that guys are able to come up with solutions for.
Well, and if everybody's got an AR lower, it kind of makes sense that if you want to get into their pocketbook, you just come up with something to stick on top of it, and you've made some money.
Yep.
Well, I think that pretty much covers it. And I guess with that, let's talk about some listener feedback.
Yeah. First off, we got Ray H here. He says, "Love listening to you all while I drive up and down the state of California." Well, you guys and the rest of the Firearms Radio Network got me to build an AR-15. Can you do that there?
Yes.
I
Just have
thought
to be careful.
I thought it was all corny when Reed would read in the beginning of the show how Jake would shoot a D10 into the carpet, then onto the linoleum floor. Found out firsthand that the rear detent springs are tiny missiles. Thank God my wife was at work. I wouldn't want her to see two 44-year-old brothers face down on the kitchen floor looking for that spring. Had to order a replacement, as that first one is gone somewhere in the darkness of the evil tile floor. Thanks.
Now, you see, Ray, we wouldn't lead you astray. We were trying to give you that sage piece of wisdom because we've all been there with you and your brother face down looking on the floor trying to figure out where the heck that spring went. So our next one is from Ian K. Ian is a constant contributor. So he writes in, "Hi Reed, JW, and Anthony, another great and informative episode. Thank you. Thanks for the SCAR profile on a show about the Stoner platform. I'm not sure why it feels okay to do that as opposed to any other modern battle rifle, but it just does." Well, I think that's JW there, right there. That's his influence. So he says, "Clearly, it's easy to understand when compared to the M4 why the Mark 16 was not adopted, but the Mark 17, when you need to cover a half kilometer, it looks like one of the best 30 cal rifles today. I would be interested, though, to compare the SR-25 and the Mark 17 setup in the DMR role. Which one has better accuracy? My guess would be the AR. Having all that gas and piston hardware hanging off the end of the Mark 17 barrel can't be that good. I've always appreciated how With the free float rail, the AR barrel is almost naked, with little to disturb the harmonics. I've always been interested in the SCAR because it was trying to be a replacement, and as great as it is, not any real improvement over the AR. In my opinion, the real problem is the cartridge. If you think adopting a new rifle is difficult, consider changing the NATO standard. I especially enjoyed JW's perspective, first-hand knowledge of the platform. I don't think that a lot of people, myself included, have had the chance to try one, so his experience and insight was really appreciated. Finally, I've heard that the next-gen SCAR will look a bit like the FNAC, the non-reciprocating charging handle and the front sight moved off the gas block. Pretty cool. Thanks again. So, JW, you have any thoughts on that? That's a mouthful of commentary there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with him. Those were kind of the same conclusions that we came to at the end of the show, was that the Mark 16 or the SCAR Lite, the 223 version, is a tough sell when it's hanging there on the gun shop wall at maybe $2,300 to $2,500 next to other pretty solid ARs in the $1,500 range.
Right.
Whereas when you step up to the 308 platform, the SCAR Heavy or the Mark 17, it's really a pretty competitive platform, and I've been happy with it. I know they've been selling pretty well, and I'd be interested in that comparison too. I've never run an SR25 or a SAS. I got some buddies that could probably chime in on that. I could check with them, and yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things to be said for letting a barrel hang out there on its own, unaffected by the harmonics of grabbing a big old gas piston system onto it. But yeah, I mean, as far as accuracy is concerned, when I want to really dial things in there, I go to a bolt action, and if I'm shooting kind of center of man, then the SCAR Heavy really does accomplish that for me. So
Right.
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of things we missed when we did the comparison. One thing I didn't really touch on was all the ambidextrous controls that come right out the box on the SCARs, and we'll probably get into a lefty show here at some point, but that's one thing that's great to be able to drop magazines and maneuver the safety without having to get any sort of aftermarket parts on your AR.
Well, you know, I don't know. I remember just basically learning how to handle it left-handed, so it almost got to the point that a right-handed AR that was geared towards left-handed features, they wouldn't use them. You know, or an ambidextrous AR, I was still going to the places I always went to use.
Oh yeah, when I run the charging handle, I still reach over and run it, even though I've got an ambi charging handle. I don't know, I just don't really run it.
You know, I think that the SCAR is definitely something that we should revisit at a future date, but for now, I mean, I think you did a great job on that show, and we'll have to just kind of see if we can't come back with some of that feedback on a comparison for E and K here, and then we'll have to move on to something else.
Yeah, and it's been a little, it's been pretty recent since Anthony took the reins last week. We haven't really gotten much back from him. I know I gave a listen. It was a great overview he gave of kind of the newbie experience to the AR world. But if you're in the same boat, or if you gave a listen to the show and you got something to say, please get in touch with us. I know Anthony would love to dig into some of that feedback because he did such a great job broadcasting.
Well, and you know, I think that brings up a good point. One of the things that when we were discussing the giveaway with Brownells about was just trying to circle back and put out some content that would detail that journey of building an AR. And I know that we've got some episodes where we kind of tried to chew it up in great giant big mouthfuls, and it's really hard to transfer that in bits and pieces that are more use or more utility. So we're going to try to get that newbie perspective, you know, mindset, so that we can help you actually go A to Z on a build and put it together. And that, leads us into the next bit, just like JW was saying. I'm sure that Anthony would love to hear your feedback if you're a newbie, and we'd all love to answer any questions you have. But if you've written in and I didn't get a chance to get to your email, or you wrote in at a moment I was swamped and I inadvertently omitted discussing it, or if you just have always thought that you wanted to ask a question but didn't really, get around to it, well, by all means, get around to it. We'd love to hear you. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to share what you have written in about with the other listeners. And it's kind of the foundation of how we pass on the information that we have, because, JW and I can sit here and, talk about what might interest us this week, this month, this hour, but that's not necessarily what you guys, the listeners, want to hear us talk about. And we're more than happy to talk about anything that you want to let us know you're interested in. So, the more you guys can help us know what you want, the more we can give to you that kind of content and make you feel like you're getting what you want to listen to. So I guess with that,
and it helps us too when we're twiddling our thumbs here Monday night, saying, "Hey, what should we talk about, Reed?" "Oh, I don't know, JW. What do you want to talk about?" "Oh, I'm not sure, Reed. What do you want to talk about?" So yeah, with that, we've hammered it at you, but we want to hear from you. You can get to us at feedback@ar15podcast.com. You could, rather than express yourself in writing, you could just leave us a recorded voicemail right on the AR-15 podcast website using the SpeakPipe plugin on the right-hand side. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/firearmsradio, where you'll get updates from the entire network. You can go to Google Plus to watch us live here on Monday nights at firearmsradio.tv/plus. All of our shows are video recorded and go up on our YouTube page at youtube.com/firearmsradio. You can also share pictures with us through Flickr at flickr.com/groups/blackrifle. And don't forget to check out the other podcasts on the Firearms Radio Network. You can see them and subscribe to them at firearmsradio.tv/iTunes, where you can also leave us reviews, and that'll help us show up in searches, and it gives you a place to let us know how we're doing. Don't forget to use our Brownells affiliate link when you're shopping for all your AR-15 parts at ar15podcast.com/parts. And when you visit the firearmsradio.tv website, use our Amazon affiliate link that Jake's put there right on the site.
And we are only 6 pieces of iTunes feedback away from giving you a hiatus of jabbering about iTunes for a while. So write in, help us get to Magic 300, and I don't know, maybe we'll do something very special for the show. I think JW said that he would do a song and dance on a best poll. Is that what you said, JW?
Yeah, I don't remember that conversation. Maybe that was you and Anthony.
No, you were a little hammered then. Yeah, I think JW has signed a contract. We'll have to do something very, very special for all you guys, the listeners. So.
Otherwise my pay is going to be held.
So, another great podcast. We certainly hope that if you come up with another variant of the AR that we didn't cover, that you would send it in, because we really do find these very interesting. I think one of these I'm going to actually go get. I'm going to get the Ares SCR. I think that looks pretty awesome. But, hey, everybody have a great week. Have a safe week. And write in. We'll talk to you 7 days from now.
All right. Talk to you later, guys.
All right. Bye.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.